What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to stay up to the Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and turn the notification bell on if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to anybody that came to the live stream that we did yesterday. It was the most viewed live stream we've ever done. We did it right when the 53-man roster was released. So at 4 p.m., Eastern time, we did it. It was so much fun. So if you didn't check that out, just kind of my thoughts on the full roster and things like that, absolutely go check it out. I strongly recommend it. But in this video, I want to talk about something that's I think a lot of Ravens fans are talking about. I think they were talking about it yesterday. But, Ben Mason was cut recently, and I think a lot of Ravens fans understood that it was coming. However, the biggest thing that people need to know is Ben Mason got signed by the Patriots today, or the Patriots are signing Ben Mason. And that's very frustrating for a lot of people. That's very frustrating for a lot of Ravens fans. It's very frustrating to me because the Ravens have a 5th-round pick. And, after the draft, the Ravens organization, they basically said, like, oh, why didn't you draft an offensive tackle? And they're like, oh, well, that's because we didn't want to reach on anybody. They say that after they drafted a fullback that was projected to go undrafted. And there were still good offensive tackles on the boards. For example, Stone, I think it's Forsyth, the offensive tackle out of Florida, made a 53-man roster, and he was drafted way later than him. And it's just like, it's one of those things where the Ravens have shown just this unbelievable bias towards Michigan players. And it's obviously because of John Harbaugh and the Jim Harbaugh family connection to Michigan. It's very obvious. They talk about it. He's like, oh yeah, we got, when they drafted him, what I was so mad when I heard this, but he was like, oh yeah, Mama Harbaugh really loves him, so we got that approval. And it's like, there's never been a Michigan player that the Ravens have drafted under John Harbaugh that's been good or has worked out for the Ravens. Like, think about it. Ben Bredesen, we just traded him. Chris Wormley, now he's playing for the Steelers. Harbaugh's always seemingly trying to get these Michigan guys, and they never work out. And it was a clear overdraft. And now I defended the pick because my assumption was, hey, if they're able to do what I think they want to do, and what that was, stash him on the practice squad and then bring him up when Patrick Ricard doesn't return, then I guess it kind of makes sense. Then you have a fullback, that you have when he's in the organization, he doesn't have to learn as much. But it didn't work. New England's claimed him, and now all of a sudden, they've just completely wasted that draft pick. A complete waste. Now, I understand the Sean Wade, they had to trade him. The Ravens were just too talented at that spot. But going into the draft, there was no way that the Ravens looked at their roster and said, you know what, we're keeping 2 fullbacks. I highly doubt that was ever a thought in their mind that they would keep 2 fullbacks. I just really don't think they were thinking that. I think their entire plan was, okay, well, we have Pat Ricard, we'll have this guy for the future. That was the entire plan. At least with Sean Wade, they're looking at the cornerback position and they're like, we still have some unknowns. Now, the Ravens, luckily, they had some players really play well, like Chris Westry and those other guys at the back end of the cornerback spot. They played well, and so they were able to beat out the other guys. But the Ben Mason pick was drafted purely for the future. But come on. The Ravens are one of very few teams that use a fullback. You can definitely draft a fullback. Patrick Ricard wasn't even a fullback. And they got him to play fullback, and it worked out well. It's not the hardest position to play in the NFL. He's out there very little. He's out there maybe in a high potency Patrick Ricard game, he's out there 10, 15 snaps. 10 to 15 times. They used a 5th-round pick on a backup for a guy to be out there 10 to 15 times. And I don't understand that. I think a lot of Ravens fans are rightfully mad. I wasn't mad about it. When they cut him yesterday, I was like, if he clears waivers, it's fine. It's fine if he clears waivers. But he didn't clear waivers. And that draft pick just shows Harbaugh, we can't draft these Michigan guys. And I understand there's good Michigan players. But the Ravens never seem to go after the good Michigan players early. It's never like they're like, oh, wow. For example, like Kwity Paye. If Kwity Paye was available, in the 1st round when the Ravens were picking, I'm like, draft him. Okay, he fell in the draft. He's a 1st-round pick. Like, he's good. But the guys they draft, like Ben Mason. Come on, Ben Mason. The 5th-round fullback. Like, that's not something that you look at like, oh, wow, he really fell in the draft. No, they reached on him. He was likely going to go undrafted. How many teams are going to look at an undrafted fullback and be like, we need to sign you? Like, the Ravens might have done that. They could do it next year. Like, I don't understand this draft pick. I want to know what you guys think about the draft pick. So comment it down below. What you guys think on this Ben Mason thing. But I don't know. Just, it's very frustrating to me because the plan, I get the plan. I understand what the plan was, but the plan failed. And them missing out on players. And then the annoying part was just them saying, like, we didn't want to reach on anybody. But then they clearly reached on Ben Mason. It was a clear reach. I believe it was the last pick in the 5th round. That's a reach. For a fullback, it's like drafting a kicker. You don't draft a kicker. You don't draft a fullback because they're just not needed by most teams. And you can get one in free agency. Heck, I bet you could go to the Canadian Football League and find somebody that can play fullback. Heck, you could get a rugby player to play fullback for you. That's not something that would be overly difficult for the Ravens to go out and get. But instead, they draft him rather than drafting an offensive lineman or somebody. And I'm not saying if they drafted an offensive lineman, it would have been a beast. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it would have succeeded. But it would have had a better chance of succeeding at a position where there was no chance for him to make the roster unless Pat Ricard got hurt. That was the only chance he had of making the roster. At least if they draft any other position, even if they drafted quarterback, there'd still be a chance they could make the team. The Ravens could have been, hey, we want 3 quarterbacks. There would have been a chance. If they could beat out Trace McSorley or Tyler Huntley, there would have been a chance. Or if they drafted a running back in the 5th round. There were some good guys. Kenneth Gainwell, for example, I believe was available at that point, as well as the undrafted running back out of Buffalo, who had 6 touchdowns in one game. He ended up making the Washington football team 53-man roster. Shout out to him. But any position the Ravens could have drafted and had at least a chance to make the team, even if it was wide receiver. They drafted 2, but maybe even another guy played well. Defensive line, edge rusher, any guy. There would have been a shot. The only shot that they wouldn't have if they drafted them, there were, I would say, 3 positions that you would not be able to make the team as. Fullback, kicker, and punter. Those are the only spots that the Ravens would look at and be like, yeah, we are literally drafting you to be on the practice squad. This is the only spot. And I think that's ridiculous. I don't understand why they figured that would be a good plan. I don't think that they were ever expecting him to beat out Pat Ricard. That was never seemed to be that's never what I got from any of the things. They were just like, we really like him. He works hard. There's a lot of guys that work hard. They're like, he's a tough player. They were never like, oh, hey, he's really impressed us or anything like that. Like, they were like, oh yeah, he can play special teams and he can play defensive line. He can play fullback. He's not very good at defensive line and we don't need a fullback. So I guess all he'd be is special teams, but half the team can play special teams. It was absolutely ridiculous. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you everybody for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I will see all of you again tomorrow. But please let me know what you guys think about this. I don't know. I'm pretty pissed about it. Just the fact that he was from Michigan. I don't know. It just seems like way too often Harbaugh just talks about, Jim really likes this guy. There's a reason Jim didn't succeed in the NFL very much. Just saying. It's not like Jim is some all-time great coach. If Nick Saban's like, this guy's a beast, go pick him up. I'm there. Draft the guy Nick Saban loves. Draft the guy Dabu loves. But it's Jim Harbaugh, the guy who's never beaten Ohio State. Ridiculous. Thank you everybody for watching. Subscribe. I'll see all of you again tomorrow.